Okay. Welcome to Kapitel Tzaddik, chapter 95. Should be very familiar to you. This is the beginning. This is the one time we definitely say it during davening is Friday night. Almost all Friday nights, by the way, not every Friday night. There are some Friday nights that we don't say it, which we'll talk about soon. Yeah, think about it. You feel free to tell me when. And there's another time that we also say this. We say this every Wednesday. Every Wednesday. So we talked about last class in the previous chapter that we say chapter 94 as the Hayoim Yoim, as the song of the day. Oh, he made it. Fantastic. The song of the day for Wednesday, for Yom Revi, yeah, for Wednesday. So that's chapter 94. But if you open up a siddur and you look at it, you'll see that we do the whole chapter 94, and then we do the first three verses of chapter 95. Ki kel gadol and asher biyad. Sorry, nekad mafanav and ki kel gadol. The first three verses of this chapter are part of the song of the day for Wednesday that we talked at length already about last week. So we say it once a week on Wednesday. We say it once a week most Friday nights. I'll give you a hint. We don't say it Friday night when it's Yom Tov.
Yeah.
When it's Yom Tov. Yom Kippur as well. Any Yom Tov. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We don't. So actually, I just went to check because I remembered that there was a difference in my minhag and the way they used to do it when I used to daven in Beth Tikva, the way they do it in Beth Tikva. And I'm trying to remember what's the difference. I said, do they take do L'chun Rana even though it's Yom Tov? So I just went to check in Ashkenaz Siddur. No, so the difference is that we start the paragraph before L'chadaydi, and we do L'chadaydi. In Chabad, we do L'chadaydi if it's Shabbos Yom Tov. In Nusach Ashkenaz, in the Ashkenaz Siddur, you start Mizbar Shilam Shabbos, which is way after. It's basically Ma'ariv, not Kabbalah Shabbos anymore. So we do a part of Kabbalah Shabbos, but definitely this chapter is not said. So it's said most Friday nights. And again, the first three verses we say on Wednesday at the end of Shir Shal Yom, at the end of the Song of the Day. Which anybody have any ideas why? Why would we say the three verses over here? The first three verses over here, part of Song of the Day of Wednesday. What's Wednesday? Middle of the week, right? Just over the hill. Time to get ready for Shabbos. So we already mentioned Shabbos. We already mentioned a davening. We're going to say on Shabbos. We already mentioned it on Wednesday. Wednesday, it's time to prepare for Shabbos. More on this soon, but just to get that into our heads. That's what we're talking about over here. This chapter that we say every Friday night. Okay, so let's do as we usually do. Go through the chapter with a basic translation, and then come back and with some commentary. So pasuk Aleph, pasuk number 1. Lechu. Let's go. Niranina, let's sing. La Hashem, to Hashem. Naria, another type of singing. Litzur Yeshenu, to the rock of our salvation. To the rock Yeshenu of our salvation. Nikadma, Fanav Besaida. So Nikadma, let's embrace, like when you go forward, or that we're expecting the countenance of Hashem to come forward to us. So let's embrace that Besaida with thanks. With mirais, with song, Nari Allah will sing to him. Pasuk Gimel number 3, Ki, because for Kel Gadol Hashem, God is great. Kel Hashem, Gadol is great, is big. Hashem, our God. Umelech Gadol, and a big king is he. Al Kol Elikim, on all other Elikim. Here he translates it as supernal beings. The literal translation would be over all other gods, but it means all the other things that have some sort of power in nature, so to speak. Asher biyadai mechkerei aretz, that with his hand, capital H, with Hashem's hand, with his hand, mechkerei aretz, he has mechkerei is from the word chakira. Chakira means to to study something in depth, to delve into understanding something. That's what mechkere means. So mechkere yaretz, with his hand, it delves into earth, the soyafos, and the top of the heights of harim, of the mountains, loy, belong to him. Pasuk 5, Ashalaya Yamvu. So the ocean belongs to him, or the sea belongs to him, and he made it. The Yabeshes, and the dry land, the beach. Yabasha is it's dry land, not beach. Anything, yeah, all dry land. The Yabeshes, Yadav Yatzaru, his hands have formed. Pasuk 6, Bayu Nishtach, come, let us bow. And so actually, nishtachve is prostration, nichra is bowing down, nivrecha is bending knees. Nivrecha, if you didn't put it into context and didn't have the proper translation, you would see the word baruch in there, which means blessed. But we'll talk about that soon. But nivrecha means to bend your knees. Lifnei Hashem eseinu, in front of Hashem, who has made us. Pasuk Zayin 7. Kihu Elokeinu, for he is our God. Vanachnu Amar Yisai, and we are his nation, his flock. Vitzayin Yadai, and the sheep by his hand. Hayoim, today, im bekoiloi tishmo, if we listen to his voice, if we listen to what he says. Pasuk 8, Al takshu levavchem kimeriva, don't harden your heart for a fight, for an argument. Kiyoim masa b'midbar, like the day of traveling in the desert. Asher nisuni aviseichem, for your fathers, meaning your the generations before you, have tried me. Nisuni is they have tried me. V'chanuni, and for nothing, for naught, for no reason. Gamrau fali, they have also seen my actions. 40 years I have quarreled with a generation. And I say, Am toye levavheim, they are mistaken. Their hearts are mistaken. V'heim, and they layadu drachai, have not known or do not know my ways. And final pasuk, Asher nishbati v'yapi, for I have vowed in my anger, im yevayun el menuchasi, that they shall not come to my place of menucha, of resting. Yeah, menucha. So that is a basic translation. Obviously needs some more talking about. There's quite a bit to talk about. I have to pick and choose a little bit over here. There's different approaches to this chapter of Tehillim. I have to remember that at the end, I wrote down in my notes every pasuk the way the Alshich explained it. And the Alshich took it in a whole different way, and I wrote it. And after I finished all my notes, I said, no, we're not going to do it one by one. We're going to do it at the end. We'll come back and we'll learn the whole chapter according to the Alshich. He has a unique approach to the chapter. So I just have to remember to do that at the end of the class. So as in the form of introduction, the two lines at the top of the chapter says, this psalm speaks of the future, when man will say to his fellow, come, let us sing and offer praise to Hashem for the miracles he has performed for us. And that's right away. Why? Because Kigel Gadol Hashem, because Hashem is great. Let's go and sing because Hashem is great. But at what point it says over here it says that it's talking about the future. So the Sforno comes and says that it's talking about right before Mashiach comes. Right before Mashiach comes is going to be an ingathering of all the exiles, everybody that's outside of Eretz Yisrael, outside of the land of Israel, and before Mashiach comes, after the ingathering of the Jewish people. So that's when it's talking about, it's a period of time that's going to give an opportunity to me, to the Yidden, to the Jewish people, to be able to do tshuva. So it's a period of time in between of the ingathering and the coming of Mashiach. Yeah. And at the end, where Zorna says at the end, we talked about the Dar Midbar, we talked a little bit about the generation in the desert. So it's like one, like we mentioned over here, it's one encouraging the other. When man will say to his fellow, one encourages the other person, that they should be able to see the gula, they should be able to see the redemption, not like the Dara Midbar, the generation in the desert that didn't end up coming into Eretz Yisrael. So we should learn from, so to speak, from past mistakes, be able to do tshuva, so that way we should be able to see Mashiach's coming. So that's the Sforno's approach. The Sforno, we'll see throughout, tries to bring out the idea that it's talking to the group of Jews right before Mashiach comes during the ingathering of the exiles. The Radak says, simply, like we said in the introduction over here, that everybody will encourage their friends. Let's go and let's go praise Hashem. That's what the pasuk, very simple. These verses are talking about. One is convincing his fellow, encouraging his fellow. Let's go and praise Hashem. The Mamleya says that it's very much connected to the previous chapter. If you remember, previous chapter, chapter 94, Kel Nikamis Hashem, talks a lot about the war that Hashem will wage on our behalf, and we're thanking Hashem, praising Hashem for the Hashem taking revenge, quote unquote, revenge against our enemies, those who started up with the Jewish people. Over here, this chapter is after Hashem smites the enemies. So come, let's go and praise Hashem together. We mentioned already that for a couple of chapters that there's 11 chapters over here that Moshe Rabbeinu seems to be saying to different shvatim, to the different tribes, based on the blessings that he gave them in the Chumash Devarim. And over here, the Medrash says that this one is to Shevet Yisachar. Yisachar, what's Yisachar known for? Anybody remember? What are they known for? Oh, Torah study, right? They had the famous deal that they did with Zvulun, right? There were two tribes, two brothers, Yisachar and Zvulun, and they had a famous deal. It's used till today. The concept. Right. So the concept of Yisachar and Zvulun was that we always need, throughout the generations, we always need that there should be Yidden studying Torah. But on the other hand, if there's Yidden studying, if you're only going to study Torah, you can't put food on the table. So this concept was that Zvulun, L'chayfaniyos, they were on the water, they were businessmen, professional, fantastic businessmen, and they went out and did good business. And they supported their own families and the families of Shevet Yisachar. So therefore, Yisachar studied Torah, Zvulun did business, and they each had a merit of the other. I was just in a store in Crown Heights in New York last week, and I was buying something. It was quite expensive, and he looks at me and says, "You're a shliach, right?" So I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, you get the shluchim discount." So, well, what's the shluchim discount? 10% off. It was quite a few dollars. And I'm like, "Oh, very nice." But I joked with him about it. I was a little uncomfortable, so I joked with him about it. So, such a big savings. Like I made it so he says, "No, it's my way that I could have a little part of your shluchas." I said, "When you put it that way, now I can't say anything. Now that's a beautiful thing, right?" It's not like. For me, it was more like, well, maybe a shliach can't afford it, so therefore I'm going to give it to him for cheaper. No, nothing to do with that. He wants to have a little chelik. He wants to have a little part in the shlichus, and by giving a discount to a shliach, so he has a part because now part of his money is here. And that's the Yisachar Zvulun partnership. And by the way, it goes to any time a person gives tzedakah, right? We don't always have the opportunity to do all the mitzvahs that we want to do, especially study of Torah. So if we support a yeshiva or a place that teaches Torah, a Chabad house that teaches Torah, right? What are you doing? You're getting that value of Torah study, right? The work now that you go and you sit in the office and slave away to make that few dollars. But where does that money go? Part of it, not all of it. All of it is not allowed to go, but if part of it goes to help the study of Torah, that's the Yisachar Zvulun partnership. When I was a kid, I think my father used to even sign contracts with people. It was a merit for the person. So he would sign a contract. I give X percent, whatever, I think it was a 10% contract, 10%. But it was a contract. It was a serious thing.
You never talked about it all?
About giving 10%, but the idea of a contract was
But he talked about sharing in the midst
Yeah.
of that.
exactly.
But giving means others could study Torah. It's a schus
Exactly.
for you in giving.
100%. And that's the whole point. The whole point. When you're giving tzedakah to a poor person, that's the old date tzedakah, so to speak, the real idea, the original idea of tzedakah, and it wasn't just money, it was leket shikcha and peah, your field you had to leave out, right? There's many ways that we support poor people in Torah and Judaism. There's many ways. One of the ways is to take money out of your pocket and to give it to a poor person when they need, right? But today, most of donations don't go directly to a poor person. There are some organizations that will help poor, like let's say here in Montreal, let's say Mara, right? But many donations go, let's say Federation CJA or Chabad $1, right? But that's not tzedakah that's going to a poor person. But what is it? It's your hard-earned money that goes to support an organization that does good things. So you have a part in the good things that they do. You're not going to give money to an organization that you don't believe in, right? You're going to give money to an organization that you believe that they're doing good things. So you have a part in it because of the connection that you have by giving that tzedakah. So that was the Yisachar Zvulun partnership. We went way off topic because we mentioned Yisachar and I had to bring that up. I don't know why, but yeah. So actually it does have to do because there's a reason why this chapter is associated with Yisachar. Why? Because Yisachar was constantly Niranina was always singing words of Torah. And that's the way the Medrash connects this chapter with Shevet Yisachar. Niranina could be singing a song of praise, but could also be singing a song of Torah, singing the song of Torah's time. Okay, so that's more or less an introduction to the chapter, but just the other thing that we have to talk about is the fact that it's done on Friday night. So it's only a few hundred years old that we do this for Kabbalah Shabbos, that we say these chapters for Kabbalah Shabbos. Rabbi Moshe Cordovero was a big Kabbalist. His brother-in-law, and I forget his name right now. So Rabbi Moshe Cordovero did the first six, instituted the first six chapters that we say at the beginning of Kabbalah Shabbat, of Kabbalah Shabbos, and then you go into L'Chadaidi. And his brother-in-law is the one who composed the L'Chadaidi. His name is escaping me right now. And then it became across the board that everybody does these chapters. By the way, it's an amazing thing that you have Sfarad, Ashkenazim, everybody does the same chapters. So the Moshe Cordovero instituted these six psalms. The reason that was given was that the six psalms are connected to the 6 days of the week, 6 days of work, and now comes Shabbos. Shabbos also is a time of joy. Yismechu b'malchuscha shemrei Shabbos v'kayrei, the pasuk says. Yismechu, you should be joyous b'malchuscha, in your kingship. Whose kingship? Hashem's kingship, right? So when do we have time to really sit down and focus on Hashem in our life, Hashem in our world, Hashem in our community? When do we have that time? We already talked about that when we talked about chapter Mizmor Shir Leim Shabbos. That Shabbos is the time where during the week we don't have that much time to sit back and to think about these things. Comes Shabbos, we do have that time. So we're supposed to find joy, Yismechu v'malchuscha, find joy in Hashem's kingship. And these chapters are all about the joy in Hashem's kingship. Talks about Hashem's kingship and talks about the idea of being joyful in Hashem's kingship. Ultimately, we want that Hashem's kingship should be revealed, which is what these chapters talk about. That Hashem's kingship will be revealed in the times of Mashiach. I mentioned that we say it also on Wednesday night. Wednesday morning in Shir Shal Yain. The Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, calls it L'chun Ranna HaKatan, small L'chun Ranna, which is a preparation for Shabbos. And then this is L'chun Ranna HaShalem, the full L'chun Ranna. Frierdiker Rebbe has a whole sikha on whole talk on this. The Rebbe also has a talk, and he quotes the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and says, so we talked about the fact that Friday night we always say L'chun Ranna. But what if the Friday night, the Rebbe was specifically talking about Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah, that's on Shabbos. So Rosh Hashanah, just like any other Yom Tov that's on Shabbos, you don't start L'chun Ranna. You start later. By us, you start L'chadaydi, the chapter before L'chadaydi, or after L'chadaydi for some. But you don't say L'chun Ranna. So what does that mean? Because L'chun Ranna is a certain joy and a certain light that's being brought into Shabbos. So if we don't say it, it's obvious that it comes even without saying. Just like we explained in Chassidus that, like last year, the first day of Rosh Hashanah was Shabbos, that by not blowing shofar, we accomplished what we could accomplish by blowing shofar, because Shabbos, we don't blow shofar, right? So that concept we understand. So but the Rebbe says, but it is still interesting, we still say it on Wednesday. So it means that Wednesdays, there's something unique about the saying it on Wednesday more than the saying it on Shabbos. And the Friedrich Rebbe also, the previous Rebbe mentions about a person being a Marash Chayra. The week comes and you're halfway through the week, and a person could be sad, it could be dark, could be heavy, So Wednesday comes. You have what to look forward to. Shabbos is coming, and that we say it in the davening in order to make sure that people can start being joyful, start preparing, and start being ready for Shabbos. And also, Friedrich Rebbe writes that, as we know in general in Judaism, and we talked about this a lot, not in the Tehillim class, in the other classes, and in the speeches, that Elul is a time of preparation. And Judaism is very big on preparation, because you can't have a real experience without preparation. You can't have a bar mitzvah without preparing for your bar mitzvah. Doesn't matter, and it's not just for the kid that doesn't know how to read Hebrew that I'm teaching bar mitzvah lessons here, right? Even the religious kid needs a preparation for his bar mitzvah. Maybe it's a little bit different, but still, and Shabbos also needs a preparation. Shabbos, and the famous stories in the Gemara we talked about a few weeks ago, when we talked about Mizmor Shir Shabbos, about how the different sages would prepare for Shabbos, physically prepare for Shabbos, even the physical food that they would eat for Shabbos, right? Making of the fish was done by Rava or something like that, right? Rava or Rabba, one of them actually went and he made the fish every Shabbos. Why? Because in order to have a proper experience for Shabbos, you have to prepare for Shabbos. Comes Wednesday morning, says, Shabbos is coming. Without proper preparation, you won't have a good Shabbos. So to have a good Shabbos, you have to prepare for it. And it has to start already on Wednesday. So on the one hand, it's to take away the Marash Chayra, it's to take away the sadness that a person might have because we're halfway through the week, and the week is long and it's schlepping, etc. So don't worry, Shabbos is coming. But on the other hand, also it demands of you to prepare for Shabbos. So that's in a form of introduction to this chapter. And now let's go into the individual psukim. Pasuk 1. Let's go and sing. Let's go and sing to Hashem, and let us sing to the rock, to our salvation. The one, to our salvation. The Mitzvah says that in the future, it's talking about in the future, time of Mashiach, that people will encourage one another that they should come and say, that they should say, let's go together and let's sing praises of Hashem. The Radak says that, and he's medayik, he comes and he brings out a point. He says, L'chu, usually, what does leich mean? L'chu, go. It usually means you're here. L'chu, let's go. Right? L'chu would be, it's plural. It's one person telling another, let's go. So you might think that it means to walk from one place to the other. The Radak says no, it's used in that format, but it's not a physical going. It's an encouragement type, like come on, let's go, right? Like let's praise Hashem together. But it's not about a physical moving. It's the way the Radak is medayik in the word l'chu. The Sforno says, as we mentioned before, that the Sforno has this opinion that it's talking about that in between time from the ingathering of Jewish people in the land of Israel until Mashiach comes. So the Sforno says that those that are ingathered from the galus, from the exile, so they're telling one another, come, l'chun rana, let us sing and thank Hashem for taking us out from in between the nations of the world. And the Alshich, as I mentioned, we're going to come back and do the Alshich again at the end. So that's L'chun Ran. Pasuk Beis, Pasuk number 2. So Nikadma, before we sing, we're going to start off with giving a gift. Nikadma koidem, right? Before, nikadma means something before. So before we sing, we're going to start off with a gift of thanks for all the goodness that Hashem has done for us. So that's the introduction to that. Mitzudas clarifies the pasuk that nikadma, which means nikadma fanav, could mean that we're going to wait for his countenance, his face, to come towards us, but no, it's nikadma that we're going to go forward, huh? Yeah, exactly. We're gonna approach nikadma. We're gonna approach.
That's why I don't like the first interpretation, lechu. It doesn't mean moving. It means just let's.
Right.
Why? Why use the word lechu? It's there for a reason.
Right.
Why use nakadma? It's there for a reason.
Yeah.
There is an intimation of movement, of greeting.
Right, but you could take that all, even in this pasuk, you could take it into not into the physical, into the homiletical, into the what do you call it?
But the pshat is very inspiring. It's later. It says bo nishtachaveh. Why does it say bo? It's right. That's come lech and bo and come.
If I remember correctly, the Arizal in Tzfas is to go out Friday night into the field to daven. Not even most times you go into the shul to daven Friday night. So if you're ever in Tzfas, right? Tzfas is up on a hilltop. You go into the valley. You go into the next mountain over at Miron, right? It's a lot of greenery around there. And so I was thinking about it because you say lechu, let's go. So like it's a real lechu rano. Let's go out to the field. Let's go praise Hashem out into the field. Yeah. So and the Radak says on pasuk Beis Nikad Mafanav B'Seida that we're going to approach him with thanks. So talking about thanks with our lips of giving praise and thanks to Hashem. Thanking again, as others have mentioned, thanking for all the good that Hashem has done for us. The Svarnu, as we mentioned, is talking about the ingathering of the Jewish people. So he says that the approach is talking before the approach is talking before the day of judgment. So on the day of judgment, we'll raise our voices. So Nikadma, before the day of judgment, Nikadma Fana B'Seida, let us give thanks to Hashem. So that way on the day of judgment, we will be judged favorably. Leah says, we give thanks to Hashem for giving us the opportunity to sing His praises. So that's a thanks that we could even have the opportunity to praise Hashem. So Nekadma Fana B'Seida. Also in the Mamlayas, so he says Nikadma is something. If you think of the word, if you understand the word in the grammar, it's talking about future tense. Nikadma, we will go approach. Let us approach, but it's not something that we've done already. It's something that's in the future tense. So it's hinting to the trust that we have, that Hashem, the betochen, right, the faith and the trust that we have, that Hashem will bring us to Yeshua, to salvation. Pasuk Gimel, pasuk number 3. Ki kel gadol. So last week we talked about the fact that in last class we talked about kel. The name of Hashem kel represents the idea of chesed, right? So we're going to mention that over here as well. So Hashem is great, Gadol, big, great, and a king that's greater than all other, as he translates over here, supernal beings. So the Radak says ki. What does the word ki mean? So over here, ki for, because ki, there's going to be a time, and he says that it's going to, when ki, at the time of Mashiach, then there won't be anybody that will deny that kel gadol, right? Ki is referencing the fact that there will be a time that everybody will recognize and won't deny the fact that Hashem created the world, and that there's nothing that Hashem is incapable of doing. The Mamleya says that here he's starting the praises, right? Let us go and praise. Nekad Mafanov, we're going to approach with thanks. So here we're starting the praise. Kikil Godel, that Hashem is great. And we're going to go into this is very general. And from here, we're going to go into the details. Pasuk Dalid, Pasuk 4. Asher biyadei mechkerei aretz. So, since in the previous pasuk he mentions how Hashem is great in a general term, so over here he starts mentioning the details, the earth, right? Earth in general, the earth and the high mountains. So that's one of the approaches that the Mamleis uses. And the Mamleis also says that since it says that Hashem is greater than all supernal beings, right? Al kol elikim, the previous pasuk, Hashem is greater than all supernal beings. So a person could think that maybe he doesn't care what's going on in the physical world. Hashem is what's his counterpart, so to speak? What's he greater than? He's greater than the supernal beings. Okay, so that's where Hashem rests. That's where Hashem stays. But here in this world, he doesn't know what's going on. So that's the next pasuk. No, it's all the details of the world and all the details of the physical earth. Hashem is very much aware and deals with all of it. So according to most commentaries, toyafos, the third to last word in verse number 4, v'soyafos harim loy, toyafos means heights. And they specifically mention it because it's not a word that's used. So the word needs explanation. So Tayafais means heights, the height of the mountain, right? The top of the mountain. So, the Meiri comes and says that Tayafais means revelation. It doesn't mean heights. Over here, Tayafais means revelation. That the first part of the pasuk says Asher biyadei mechkerei aretz, that all the studying of earth. What's the studying of earth? All the new things that you find in the earth, right? Whether it's sciences or other things that you might find while you dig and try to find in the earth. So he says Tayafais, the revelations of Hashem. They're not something that Hashem, this scientist is so great that he was able to find something that even God could have figured out. No, chas v'shalom. That even all these things are hidden that Hashem put into the earth that we should find at the right time. Whether it's medical sciences, whether it's other types of sciences, or whatever it is, that it's there from time immemorial, from creation, that it should be found in the right time. So Te'efes means that it's revelation that Hashem left there for us to find. So that's pasuk number 4. Pasuk 5. Hashem is the ocean, the sea belongs to him, and he made it. Asa, right? From the word asa. Hu asa. So what does it mean that he made it? Mitzvah says he made that it should accumulate to one place. When Hashem created the world, all the water needs to accumulate to one place, so that way there is yabasha, that way there is dry land. The Radak brings down the idea of that he already talked about before earth, and over here again talks about the Yabeshes, he talks about dry land. So the Radak says that before was just in general the earth. Over here he talks about specifics, that even the details is in his power, is in his is something that was created by Hashem. And it says V'yabeshes, and the dry land, Yodov, his hands has Yatzaru formed. So since everything is in his hands, and he made us low in exile, and that same hand elevates us when it comes to a time of redemption. It's all Yodov, it's all part of Hashem's hands. It's interesting, and the Mamleis points this out, that it says when he talks about the water, he talks about the sea, he uses the word asa. He uses the word that he made, right? And the land, Yatzar, he formed. So it brings down, it's a fascinating thing. The water, the ocean, is perfect. Doesn't need any of our help. It's exactly the way it needs to be. Yabeshas, the land, it says Asher bara likim la'asais. Hashem created, right, the end of the sixth day of creation, that He created the world la'asais for us to do. Well, that's the original idea, the real idea of Tikkun Olam, right? That Hashem created a world that's imperfect, and we have the obligation to fix the world, to do things to make this world into a better place. That's what we are here for. But not so by the sea. That Hashem asa. That He didn't do la'asais. He didn't create the sea, la'asais, to be fixed. He created the sea, and it's exactly the way it's supposed to be, and that's it. The world, on the other hand, the land, that's la'asais for us to fix. So he says it's specifically using that word. So a nice Piddush there.
Say fix the world or repair the world, I wouldn't think it has to do with the land. The land is nutrients, the land feeds all the animals, the land feeds grows the trees, the pollen, the bees. I would say the land is as perfect as the sea. So when it comes to that, when I hear, and maybe I'm way off, but when I hear to repair the world, it's to repair the evilness of mankind. It's to build a Beit HaMikdash. It's to repair ourselves. It's to overcome our own personal mitzrayim. These are the reparations of the world. But the land itself, as part of the world, as part of the planet, I would say is as perfect as the sea.
But it needs our efforts, right? Adam Rishon comes and all of a sudden gets kicked out of Gan Eden. And how many steps, the Medrash talks about this, right? How many steps it takes him to make a loaf of bread, right? Not so in the sea, right? You understand? That's even just to feed.
Also, the land has to be worked.
It has to be worked. La'asais, yeah. That's part of what Hashem wants us to do here, right? And we have to do the right thing with the land too.
We figured out how to work the sea too on our own because there's so many of us. We couldn't feed ourselves just by the land. So we figured out how to work the sea too now.
He's saying to eat fish.
Yeah. To catch them.
Yeah. By the way, I was thinking about that also. So it's one thing, okay, catching fish and whatever, you're taking fish out of the water. You're not fixing the water, you're taking fish out of the water. But today they're drilling in the sea. There's things that's beyond of what we see.
Both. We need the land, the sea. We need the land under the sea.
Yeah.
We need every bit of space that we can grab.
Yeah. Yeah. Pasuk above. Bayu nishtachave nevichra. Okay, so nishtachave, I already said this when we translated it. Nishtachave means to prostrate. Prostration is pishut yadayim v'raglayim, it's called in halacha, where you literally lay flat on the ground. In the times of the temple, and if you come here on Yom Kippur, we reenact it. That when we say v'akoyanim, when we talk about in the avodah of Yom Kippur, the service that was done on Yom Kippur in the Holy Temple. So when we get to the parts of the fact that everybody in the Beis HaMikdash prostrated themselves fully on the ground, so the Chabad custom, not everybody has this custom, but the Chabad custom is to reenact it and to go full down, even the Chazan, fully prostrate themselves on the floor, and then get back up and continue davening. That's what nishtachave means. Bayu nishtachave, come, let us prostrate ourselves. Nichra is the idea of bowing down, which is what we do by Moedim. By the way, some say that Moshe Rabbeinu says this pasuk because it represents three different davenings that we do, which is a side thing. But we have the not the first one, because we don't do it outside the temple. We don't prostrate ourselves outside the temple, besides on Yom Kippur, because then we're more like angels, right? We were white and we don't eat, etc. So we're more like angels. So therefore, we are allowed to do it then. We're not allowed to do it any other time. We're not allowed to prostrate. You're not allowed to do a full bowing down, totally down to the ground on a regular day. Only on Yom Kippur. In the times of Beis Mikdash, they would do it, but not now. But nichra, which means just to bow your head and part of your back, and this is a very specific way that we do by maidim, right? We bow forward by maidim. That is nichra. And then nivracha is about bending knees, which we also do by certain brachas in Shmoneh Esrei. And we bend our knees and then we bow our heads forward, right? So we do nichra and nivracha. Yeah.
Just an aside, okay, I don't want to disturb the class, but I'm thinking when Yosef used to go around in his chariot, people would shout, Avrech, Avrech.
Yeah.
Now, there's an argument between the rabbis. Because it's not a Hebrew name, they say, a Hebrew word. It's a Egyptian word. So one rabbi says, yeah, it comes from Nivracha. And the other guy says, you're crazy. You're taking words, you're making up things. He's angry with them. He says, no, it's Avrach. Huh? He's a father to Pharaoh. Yeah. It has nothing to do with kneeling. Yeah. Avrech.
So you're right, and but there are other places, and Rashi over here on this pasuk when he tries to explain nivrecha, because if you're just saying Tehillim like many say Tehillim and don't understand what they're saying, you come to this word nivrecha, you think it's talking about bracha, about blessing, right?
Exactly.
But it's not. It has nothing to do with blessing. I shouldn't say it has nothing to do with blessing. We'll get to that in a moment. But Rashi right away says that it's like the pasuk says vayavrech esagmalim by Avram. Avram goes and he takes the gemalim, the camels, and he makes them bend down. What is it? How does a camel go down? He bends his knees. That's you ever watch a camel go down? He bends his knees. He goes and he plops down, right? But that's what he bends his knees. Vayavrech esagmalim. That's what it actually says. It's from the same word as nivrecha. So when we say nivrecha over here, it means to bend your knees.
Yosef's name was Avrech, actually. That's what they called them, the Egyptians, Avrech.
Right. Another place this is used, just to give you the idea, is vayavrech. This idea of nivrecha is when you have a vine, right? So what do you do with a vine? So a vine starts going. Let's say you have it along a wall, or you have it along a stick, or you have it along a fence, right? Every once in a while, you got to come and you got to redirect it, right? So a vine could go all the way up, but then it's got to come back down. And that's also vayavrech. When you bend it to come back down, it's also vayavrech. And that in Chassidic philosophy, especially in Chassidic philosophy, talks a lot about that's what bracha is. Bracha is drawing down. Bracha is vayavrech, is drawing down. So when we bend down our knees, when we bend our knees, part of that, we're drawing down bracha. So it is connected to bracha.
What I do all the time with my bean plants.
Yeah.
They're vines, they're growing on a trellis. And every so often I have to take it because I can't reach any higher. I grab it and I bend it and tie it. So it's going to start going down.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize I'm creating a bracha, I'm bringing bracha.
It's the concept of bracha. It's the concept of bracha.
Beans.
Yeah, which is also bracha.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah, it's also bracha. But the idea that bracha is the same thing, that you have to reach up and schlep down the bracha. Yeah, and that's the idea of nivrecha, of bracha. So as on the one hand, it's almost the furthest thing of bracha, but on the other hand, it's very much connected to bracha because it's the idea of drawing down. So that's why on the level of soid, right? That's where you get to it. Svarnu says that bayu nishtachva is bayu, come, right? It's one telling the other person. It's one telling a fellow, like we had l'chunran also at the beginning. So we're talking about, according to the Svarnu, those who were redeemed and came from the exiles and come to Eretz Yisrael, come to the land of Israel. So bayu nishtachva, come, let us thank Hashem for all the goodness that He has given us. The Mamleya says that it's not enough just to praise and thank Hashem, but we should also bow. What's the difference between thanking and praising Hashem and also bowing? Bowing is a form of giving yourself over. It's like a servant to a master. And that's the relationship. We have both relationships with Hashem. So we should also have that relationship of come, let's bow, like a servant bows down to his master. The Zohar mentions that when Adam Rishon was created, so he's created at the end of creation, right? So you have 5 days of creation, most of the 6th day of creation, and and everything else is created. You have animals, you have birds, you have insects, you have all these things are already there, and all of a sudden, Adam Rishon kind of shows up. So all the animals thought that, oh my gosh, this is our creator. We mentioned this already before, right? This is something that this is something that we have to follow. So they're all following him around. The Zohar says they're all so the Zohar says that Adam Rishon and as they're following around, they have this sphere. It's like this is it's not like us, came after us, and they have a certain fear towards Adam. Remember, also Adam, it says B'Tselem Elokim bara, right? He was created with the Tselem Elokim, so he has a certain. It creates a certain fear. So Adam Rishon, the Zohar says, turns around to all the animals, to all of them standing around him, and he says. And he says to them, no, don't look to me. Don't be fearful of me. Let us, Bayu, come together with me. Let us, nishtachve v'nichra, let us be in awe. Let us have fear of Hashem. That's that, and he brings them into that. The Rebbe brings down the Zohar, and the Rebbe says that it's a fascinating twist of events. On the one hand, when Adam Rishon is created, there's a multitude. There's the vastness of creation. There is so much. There's so many animals. There's so much. There's trees. Just look through creation. And you look, there's all the different things. And what does Adam do with all of that? He makes one. He brings out the echad. He takes all of that. He says, no, Bayu, come instead. We're not all separate. We're all together in this, and we're all part of a one God. Bayu nishtachvim nichral. Let us all recognize that out of all of this, many is really one. Is really one. It all comes from Hashem. This is all a beautiful piddush over here in this pasuk. Pasuk Zayin, pasuk 7. Hashem is our God, and we are his flock. So, and then at the end, this end, I'm sure you heard these words. Hayayim im b'kailei sishmo. Today, if you listen to my voice, if you listen to what I have to say, it will be today. Yeah. So it's talking about salvation, right? So if you listen to Hashem today, it will be Hayayim, will be today. The salvation will come today. It's interesting. Mitzvah looks and he says, when he says over here in the pasuk V'tzayin Yadai, that we're the sheep by hand, by Hashem's hand. He says usually, how does a shepherd guide his flock? He uses a stick. Hashem uses his hand. Hashem is when he even if it's these are my words, but even if it's a patch, it's from Hashem's hand. It's the idea of Rachmanas, the idea of mercy. And Hayoim, the day that we will listen to Hashem, that's when we're going to have salvation. So that's the Mitzvah's approach to this pasuk. The Radak mentions, says that it's already starting the process of, as we get to the end of the chapter, talking about the Dara Midbar, the generation in the Midbar that didn't listen, and therefore they didn't make it into Eretz Yisrael. Don't be like that generation. We should be B'kailei Shishmo. Let's listen to Hashem's voice. Let's listen to what Hashem tells us to do, and let's not try Hashem. Let's not doubt Hashem, etc., so that way we can make it into the land of Israel. The Sforno says, that Hashem is our king, and He guides us with a certain knowledge, with a certain seichel, with certain understanding. He's our shepherd, and He protects us from other nations, right? That we're His sheep, and therefore Hashem protects us from other nations. Hayoim, today, the ingathering of exiles, the Sforno talks about this idea of the ingathering of exiles. Hayoim, today, the ingathering of exiles is in order so that, b'kailei sishmo, that we should listen to what Hashem wants us to do, and we should connect to Hashem in His ways. The Mamlei says, so by the way, this idea of Hayom, because we're going to bring the Gemara in a moment, but Hayom, because Shmo is a very famous statement that has been used throughout the generations, that Mashiach is ready to come today. Hayom, because Shmo, if you listen, if we merit, if we're listening to what Hashem wants us to do, so Mashiach will come today. The Mamleis brings down that Hayom im b'koilei sishmo Rashi Teva is the first letter of each word. So you have Hey, Aleph, Beis, and Saf. Mix them around a little bit, and you have Ahavas. Right? The second one is Aleph. The first one is Hey. So Aha, and then Beis, Saf. Ahavas. What does that mean? When's Mashiach going to come? When we have Avos Yisrael. We know this because the destruction of the previous temples were for a lack of Avos Yisrael, for sinas chinam, for hatred between fellow Jews. In order to bring Mashiach, we need to have Avas Yisrael. Hayayim in Bekaylas Shmo is also there's a hidden message there that when is Mashiach going to come? What does it mean to listen to what Hashem wants? Hashem wants us to get along. That's what Hashem wants. Ultimately that's what Hashem wants. Imam Leis also mentions that a person in his divine service should focus on today. Hayayim. Don't focus. I missed this yesterday, or I need in a week from now. I need to do this. No, what's my divine service? What does Hashem want from me today? And that's what we should focus on. We shouldn't focus on what's Hashem going to need from me on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we'll focus on what Hashem. But now He needs from me a very specific thing, and I should focus on what He needs. Hayoim, Hayoim today. Today is what counts. There's a famous story in the Gemara Sanhedrin. It talks about a lot about Mashiach. The end of Gemara Perek Chelek talks a lot about Mashiach. The whole chapter in the end of Gemara Sanhedrin. So it says a story. Rabbi Shimon Levi comes and he sees Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. Where does he see him? In front of the opening to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's cave. Yeah. So he sees him there and he tells him, "No, when's Mashiach gonna come?" So what he's saying? So he says, "Go and ask him yourself. Go and ask him yourself." He says, "How am I going to find him?" So he said that he's sitting with the poor people at the entrance gate of the city. And how are you going to know which one is Mashiach and who's just a regular poor person? So you're going to see they're all suffering with sores and they all have bandages. All these poor people from the traveling, whatever, they all have bandages, right? Everybody is going to be taking care of their sores. So what are they going to do? They're going to open up all their bandages, take care, put medicine or whatever it is, take it or clean out their sores, and then close all the bandages. But Mashiach is not going to do it that way. What's he going to be doing? He's going to open up one at a time. He's going to open up one bandage, clean, close that bandage, go to the next one. Why? Because if Hashem comes to him and says, "It's time for you to reveal yourself," he doesn't want to take that extra moment to close up all the bandages, right? So he's going to do it one at a time. That's how you're going to know Mashiach comes. Sorry, that's how you're going to know which one is Mashiach. He says, "Okay." So he goes and he finds him and he says, "No, Mashiach, when are you coming?" He tells him, "Today, I'm coming today." Ayoy, today. This guy's thrilled, ecstatic. Great. Can you imagine Mashiach tells you, "I'm coming today"? Fantastic. He goes, he leaves. The day passes, Mashiach doesn't come. So he goes back to Eliyahu Hanavi. He says, "You sent me to the wrong guy. The guy was an imposter. That's not Mashiach. He lied. If it's Mashiach, he lied." So Eliyahu Hanavi said, what did he say? He said, Hayoim. He said, he's coming today. He says, Hayoim in B'kailei Zishmo. Today, but we have to be listening to what Hashem wants. So that's the story in the Gemara, a very famous story in the Gemara, and it's based on the pasuk over here, right? Two things I want to mention. The Medrash says, what does it mean in B'kailei Zishmo? You ever heard Mordechai ben David's song? Just one Shabbos and we'll all be free. You ever heard that? It's a very famous song from Mordechai ben David. Where does he take that just one Shabbos and Mashiach is going to come? It's a medrash based on this pasuk that in B'kailei Zishmo is that all we need is that the Yidden should keep one Shabbos. If all Jews kept one Shabbos, Mashiach would come. So it's a medrash. So it's two Shabbos. One was already at Matan Torah. That's right. So it mentions two Shabbosim, but one more, and Mashiach will come. So if all Jews will keep one Shabbos, Mashiach will come. So it's a medrash. So Mordechai ben David has a very, very famous song on that, and it's based on this pasuk. Now the Rebbe brings down this Gemara, and the Rebbe says, "What's with this game?" Eliyahu Hanavi sends him to Mashiach. Mashiach tells him today, and then he comes back to Eliyahu Hanavi that Mashiach lied. So he says, "Yeah, but it's in B'kailei Zishmo." Big deal. You go to Mashiach, you ask him, "When are you coming?" And he wants to say today. Well, if you're going to listen, say that. Say Hayom B'kailei Zishmo. Right? Why go through the whole thing? And the Rebbe says that there's a problem with the premise of the question. The premise of the question is that, is Mashiach going to come? When's Mashiach going to come? The Rebbe says, no, Mashiach is what the world is all about. The whole point of creation is for a time of world peace, a time of Mashiach. That's the whole thing. So Mashiach has to come. It has to come today. There's a little technicality that we're not deserving yet, so it didn't end up coming today. But the whole purpose of the world is that Mashiach's coming today. So you ask Mashiach when he's going to come. No, there's no question about it. Okay, yes, there's the technicality that we have to deserve.
I remember once, about 30 years ago, I can't forget it. I was at shul and Chaim Inslich was preparing something for Kiddush, or cleaning up after Kiddush, I can't remember, but something to do with that. And so I said, Chaim, can I help you? He says, can you help me? Keep Shabbos, he said, keep one Shabbos. You'll help me.
Good. Wow. Wow. I love that. You have to remind him that he said that. Yeah, I think he'd get a kick out of it today, that that you remember it 30 years later.
He's gonna be here for Yom
Oh, yeah?
Keep one Shabbos, you'll help me. I said, what do you mean? And then he explained to me.
This-
All the Jews keep one Shabbos, Mashiach will come. That's how you're going to help.
That's powerful. Good. Very nice. Okay, next pasuk. Pasuk ches, pasuk number 8. Al takshel, don't harden your heart like in a fight, right? So this translates it. He says, don't second guess Hashem like they did in Meimriva, the different times in the desert that they started up with Hashem. This Varnu says, don't harden your hearts like they did, like in general, the Dara Midbar, the generation in the desert, whether it was about the spies, whether it was about the water, whether it was or anything else that they started up with Hashem. Don't be like that generation and lose out on the opportunity to go into the land of Israel. Pasuk Tes, Pasuk number 9, this it says it already clearly, that generation, your fathers, the generation of the desert, they tried me and bichanuni. So Rashi right away comes and says bichanuni from the word chinam, from the word free, meaning for no reason. They tried me, they tested me for no reason. Gamro fali, they saw everything that I've done for them. Why would they try to test me in that kind of way? Meaning they saw what I did in Mitzrayim. They saw what I did by the splitting of the sea. Why would they test me? So and Mamlai also says similarly, but he brings down two things. He says first of all that they tried Hashem, meaning debating if God even cares about us, so to speak, right? And that's one of the problems. And number two, even Hashem says that even when I provided for them, they complained about it. They weren't nice about it. Mamlez also mentions that Moshe saw in with a divine intuition, with Ruach HaKodesh, with a divine spirit, Moshe saw that when the Jews will leave exile and go to Eretz Yisrael, they're going to be Jews that are not going to want to leave, and they're going to want to stay in Galus. They're going to want to stay. They're going to want to stay in Galus in exile. So he's pleading here in this chapter, pleading with Yidden, don't be like the Dera Midbar, don't be like the generation of the desert that didn't make it in. Make sure that you make it into the land of Israel, meaning do the right thing and make it into Eretz Yisrael. So that is Pasuk Tes, Pasuk 9. Pasuk Yud, Pasuk 10, Arbaim Shana Akud B'dar. They angered me, as the Radak mentions, they angered me with the spies, their hearts erred, they didn't believe in Hashem, they didn't know that Hashem's ways, which all is miracles that Hashem did for the previous generation. And therefore, Asher Nishbati V'Api, which is the next pasuk, that Hashem got angry and swore, vowed that they won't go into Eretz Yisrael, right? Yeah, and the Mamlayas mentions that this pasuk is trying to bring out the idea that Hashem's ways are just. That 40 years He gave them a chance, and they didn't, and still didn't manage to do tshuva. Yeah.
Bothers me a little bit, this last sentence. It says, so I vowed, it's Hashem speaking, Asher Nishbati Ba'api Lo Yavun El. He has to say Ba'api.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about this pasuk.
So say even Ba'api. It's like he's saying
it's for our benefits,
Nebuch, I could have. First of all, I could have
controlled myself.
I could control myself. That's what Moshe was pleading with me the whole time. Don't be angry with them. They're Kshei Oref.
Right.
But he admits it. He says himself, Hashem, I did it in my anger.
Right. So okay. So I'll touch on your question in a moment. So first, the Metzudah says that because of what they've done in the desert, etc. So I got angry at them, right? And I promised Menuchasi is referring to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel, so they won't make it into Eretz Yisrael. So the Mitzudas and basic translation of the pasuk. The Sfarnu says that it's talking as we mentioned, talking about the ingathering of exiles right before Mashiach comes. Again, reminding them what happened before. Don't be like the generation that ignores Hashem's miracles. And won't make it in Eretz Yisrael. Don't be like them. That way you make it to see Mashiach. Now the Medrash brings down, as you mentioned, Hashem committed to something in anger. Like where does that even come up from? So the Medrash says that there's a mashal. The Medrash explains it with a mashal. Explains it with an analogy. It says a king gets upset at his son, and is so upset at something that his son did, and he makes a promise, a commitment. He says, this son, he'll never come into the palace. So angry at him, never allowed to come back into the palace. And now when he's not angry anymore, what happens? I made I can't go against I committed to something. I can't go against that. So what did he do? So the king was a chacham. So what did he do? He leveled the palace and rebuilt it. Now you could come in, right? So he says, Hashem also, he did it, Ba'api did it in his anger, so to speak. So therefore, you won't come into this menuchasi, but you'll come into menuchasi at a later time. So the Dora Midbar, the generation that didn't come in that was in the desert, they can't come into this menucha, but there will be a time they will come into Eretz Yisrael in time of Mashiach. So that is chapter 95. Yeah, it's a medrash. It's a drush. By definition, it's a drush. I wanted to go through it quickly, but with the Alshich. As I mentioned in the beginning, the Alshich often has a unique. I don't know if you remember, but it's already more than 3 years ago. I saw in another sefer a quote about the Alshich. He had a good commentary on one of the chapters in the 20s, and Punkt, I was in a Svarim store here in Utruma, and I picked up the Alshich that week, and I was able to do it properly because what I had was a little quote. And since then, I think I mentioned the Alshich almost every week. He's a fascinating Piddush, a little bit mystical, gives a little extra to it because of that. So the Alshich says that this chapter is Moshe Rabbeinu talking to the Daira Midbar. He's talking to that generation, to his peers, to his chevra, to his guys that are not going to make it into Eretz Yisrael, right? That die in the desert. And what does he say? Don't worry. Don't worry. Yeah, Hashem said you're not going to make it into Eretz Yisrael. Don't worry. Me and you together, let's go together and let's praise Hashem. Either let's praise Hashem now, or don't worry, we'll have that opportunity eventually to go into Eretz Yisrael and praise Hashem together. Not now, but we'll have that opportunity eventually together. So that's pasuk number 1. Pasuk 2, Nekad Mafana B'Seida. This is the response of the Jewish people to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem said we can't go into Eretz Yisrael. Nekad Mafana B'Seida. Maybe we could schmear him a little bit. Maybe we could give him a gift. Maybe we could say thank you for something. Maybe we could now recognize the faults that we've done, and we could correct them. That way, maybe Hashem will accept our tshuva, and we'll be able to go into Eretz Yisrael. Pasuk 3, Kikel Gadol. So why? Because Hashem is Kel. As we mentioned last week, Kel represents Chesed. Because Hashem is a God of kindness. Hashem is a God of Chesed. And Hashem hopefully will do chesed, will do a kindness with the Dara Midbar, with our generation, with the generation in the desert. Pasuk 4. That this is an admission of fault by the Jewish people, that they were afraid, for example, of Amalek. They were afraid of natural things. They were afraid of physical things. And they say that we thought that maybe Hashem won't be able to protect us. We thought that maybe Hashem doesn't have access to all parts of the earth. So now we recognize that Hashem has has access is not the right words, but Hashem understands and knows all parts of the earth, and is not limited to just things on high. And even if they're strong, Hashem will be able to give them into our hands. That's pasuk 4. Pasuk 5. So the Alshich mentions, so it's talking about the Hayam. Hashem created the ocean, the water. So he says that in the beginning of creation, the water was a third of the earth. I don't know what calculations he used, but he says the water was a third of the earth. He says, but by the Mabul, it became 2/3 of the earth. But what wasn't affected? The Yabeshes, there was a part that wasn't affected. Eretz Yisrael wasn't affected by the Mabul. It didn't include Eretz Yisrael. So it's like a comment of them saying about Hashem will give it to us. It's about the Dor HaMidbar saying that Hashem will give us the land of Israel. So that is until Pasuk 6. Pasuk 6 is already a reply from Moshe Rabbeinu to the Jewish people. And he says, it's nice that you want to go and Kadma Fanav, etc. But really, what's our job now? Come, let us bow down to Hashem. Let us accept our judgment. We accept what Hashem has done, has said for us. And the Alshich mentions that Moshe Rabbeinu says, we know that when Hashem said the first and the second dibur at the Seres Dibris, parcha nishmasam, their neshamas popped out of their bodies. They couldn't handle it, and they died, literally. And Hashem brought them back to life. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, just like Hashem did it at Mount Sinai, He'll do it eventually for us when Mashiach comes, and we'll be the resurrection of the dead. And so, don't worry, Hashem will take care of us, and we'll eventually have that opportunity to go into the land of Israel when Mashiach comes. Pasuk 7. Hashem took care of us in the desert. He took care of us. Huh?
This is the Jewish people speaking.
No, meaning I think it's if I understood correctly, it's Moshe Rabbeinu telling them, look, if Hashem took care of us for 40 years in the desert, He'll for sure take away. Salvation will come one day, right? Yeah. And Hashem will for sure take care of us one day because it's Shmo at the right time, which is time of Mashiach. Moshe Rabbeinu telling them. And Pasuk 8, the Alshich says, now this is already a heavenly voice talking. So you had Moshe Rabbeinu telling the Jewish people responding to Moshe, and maybe we could still do something and we could have. And then Moshe Rabbeinu turning to them, this is Hashem's judgment, this is what's going to be, but there will be a time, right? And now the heavenly voice comes and says, that I don't know what kind of tshuva you want to do. I'll tell you, you already had the opportunity to do tshuva, and what happened? Masa Mariva, you squandered that you hardened your heart. You hardened your hearts, and you weren't ready to accept Hashem. That's pasuk ches. Pasuk tes, pasuk 9. This is a continuation from the Ruach HaKodesh, from the divine voice, saying, you just, all you did in the desert is that you tried me, even when you saw what I've done for you. And then Pasuk Yud and Yud Aleph, it says that for 40 years you were toye levav. Your hearts were mistaken. What does it mean that your hearts were mistaken? For 40 years, unfortunately, you listened to Yetzer Hara instead of you're listening to Yetzer Taif. Toye levav, you made a mistake in the heart, which basically means that you listen to your Yetzer Hara. And then he finishes off that I made this vow in my anger. So the Alshich says that I made a vow in my anger that you won't come in to my land, but that's alone. You won't come alone into my land, but you will come in with Moshe Rabbeinu. And when Mashiach comes, together with Moshe Rabbeinu, you will have the opportunity to come into Eretz Yisrael. And that's the way the Alshich learns this chapter. Nice. A little bit the mystical way, and that's with that we finish chapter 95. Any questions?